and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn, and today I'll be making this trifold card using some nested heart dies. And I thought it would be useful to show the final card first, just so that you have an idea for where everything is headed as I am explaining what I'm doing in the process video. So the stamp set that I'm using is a CC Designs stamp set called Otters, and it was provided by Artful Angel, which is a sponsor of the Passionate Paper Creations and Friends Facebook group. If you've never heard of this group, I'll drop a link to it in the description box below so that you can check out the group if you'd like. We have a bunch of amazing sponsors, and so you'll see a ton of inspiration not only from our sponsors but from all brands, because it's a very inclusive and welcoming group. So pop on over, check out some inspiration, share your crafty makes as well. I've already colored in all of the images that I'll be using today because I wanted to focus this video on the mechanism and the creation of this card as opposed to coloring the images. I did color all of my otters pretty much with the same color combo, which I think in retrospect, if I had a wider range of colors, I might have altered things a little bit, especially where there's the grouping of 3 otters, because when they're all the same color like that, it makes it a little bit hard to discern one otter from the next, but definitely manageable. So what I've done here now is I've cut an additional panel. This is going to be the second panel in my trifold. The card base I'm using is a standard US A2 size card base, so that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and for that additional panel I just added an extra 3/8 of an inch to that 4 1/4 dimension in order to have a glue tab that I can attach to my card base. Now I've already chosen this heart die. It's the largest one that will fit on a card this size, and I'm basically working from bottom or the back to the front, and the image with the 3 otters will be the last image that you see, so that is going to be on the inside of my card base. And so I'm lining up my heart so that it sort of frames that and covers that image as much as possible. And when I go to die cut this, I'm actually only going to die cut half of it. So as you might have seen, I lined up the top cutting plate with just the left half of the heart, and that gives me a partial die cut. So now I can finish off the cut by just picking up where the die cut left off, and then cutting straight up from the top and straight down from the bottom point, and that leaves the heart portion attached to your card, so this will create a nice heart border on my second panel here. And then I'm gonna die cut out a couple of extra hearts. This particular nested heart set is from Tonic Studios, so if it's still available, I'll try to find it and leave links to it in the description box below, along with everything else that I used to create this card. So I've got my red layer here, and I'll go ahead and get the next smaller size, so one step down from that red layer. And that's what I'll die cut my second image from. So this will be the image with the 2 otters. I was really debating whether or not to just die cut straight through and cut off part of the image, but as you saw there, I decided to first try a partial die cutting to see how I liked it, and then I'll fussy cut around that bottom edge. So you can see that the heart is cut out of the top, and then for this bottom portion here, I'll just cut around the stamped image. And so I'll kind of preview this to see if I like it, because I always have the option later to go back and die cut that fully, the heart fully out if I wanted. And a lot of times I don't mind an image, getting stamped right off the edge of my card or the edge of a die cut. Sometimes that actually looks really nice. But in this case, I feel like the bottom of the image does lend a little bit of character, because you can kind of see that the little otter is, kind of up in the air. So I just think that it adds a little bit to the image. And I wanted to keep it, even though it's going to kind of break outside the border of the heart, which I think is another look, another style. So I'm totally cool with that. And I noticed that when this flap here is folded down closed, you can still see a portion of the image below it. And so I want to make sure that that gets covered up so that there's a little bit of a reveal. So it'll look a little bit cleaner, and you won't see any of the bottom image until you actually open up this flap. So that's why I've die cut that light pink sort of medium size heart, so that I can actually cover up that portion of the image that's shown below it. And it just creates a more interesting shaped edge to this particular panel. So I think it makes it look a little bit more fun and different as well. But it is motivated by the fact that I do want to cover up that image. And I want the back of this to look just as neat and finished as the front. So what I'm going to do is layer a couple of extra scrap pieces of white on top of that pink heart that's sticking out from the bottom there, because it's right now on top of basically 2 layers of cardstock. So I'm going to add 2 layers of cardstock to match that thickness. And that way, when I go to attach the topmost layer, matching the same color, light pink, everything is going to be nice and flush. And it's also going to be stronger too. So if somebody, the card recipient, actually decides to lift up this panel by the pink heart, then it's going to feel nice and thick and sturdy. And so I'm layering the red on top of it, and I just drew or traced a pencil line around the edge of that red heart so that I can cut this so that it's nice and flush. And that way I can butt the two up together and not create any additional bulk or different levels, since I've already leveled it off with those extra pieces of cardstock shims. And so I'll go ahead, and I'm using a dotty tape runner to apply adhesive around the edges. It's really fast and easy, and even though this cardstock I'm used to using and I know it won't warp with liquid adhesive, I do like to try to get as much as possible. Whenever I can, I like to try to get adhesive all the way to the edge. That way you don't get any lifting. And so the dotty tape runner is perfect for that. And so once I get this image, I'm still trying to figure out whether I should cut off that heart completely. And so that's why I was trying to kind of preview it with the image cut off. And in the end, I do leave it. And so I'll go ahead, and I don't think I had decided that at this point. That's why I am not adhering it. I decided to just keep on moving forward as I think about it more. But that 3/8 inch glue tab is how I'm adhering this second panel to my card base. So now we're looking at the front of my card base, and once here's where I decided I really need to actually make a decision so that I am going to be able to align the first panel or the card front up with this properly. And I'm basically doing the same thing as I did before. And so I'm still deciding. I finally made the decision to keep it and not die cut the heart fully. I do like it this way, but yeah, as you can see, I was really struggling to decide. But I needed that to be stuck down so that I could do the same thing here, where I'm going to use the grid mat to line up my card base. I'm going to line up my die with that white heart and create a little bit of a hinge so that I can transfer that alignment to the front of my card. And that's pretty much the exact same thing that I did from the inside of the card to the second layer. And I'm just measuring twice and cutting once. So once I verify that the alignment is what I want, I'll get that taped down really nicely. And I'm going to open everything up because we don't want to accidentally cut through our card base. And I'm going to do the exact same thing where I only do a partial die cutting. This time I'm only cutting the right edge. And then I'll cut off that right half of this panel completely by cutting from the top down to the center of the heart, skipping the heart itself, and then cutting the bottom portion off from this bottom of the heart to the bottom of the card. And so that gives me some interesting kind of shaped edges. But what I'm going to try to do is sort of match or mimic that that heart shape so that when the front panel is closed, you still see the full red heart. And what I'll do is just first lay down a piece of light pink cardstock just to give this a contrasting or different colored background from the right half of the panel so that you can really appreciate the fact that this is like a partial card panel here with the decorative or the partial heart edge. And to continue the red heart onto the card front, I just die cut another piece and I cut that in half. And that way it kind of looks like, that heart pattern is extended. I'm being careful to really line it up perfectly. And I have that same problem here again, where once I put down my hearts, a portion of the second image is visible, and so I definitely want to try to cover that up, and I'll just do the exact same thing as I did before. I'll just use another heart die cut to just hang off of this edge in order to cover up that image. Now, if I had die cut my second image, the one with the two otters, if I had die cut it completely instead of leaving the image to hang off of the heart, then this wouldn't be a problem. But I don't mind doing this because, in fact, it actually adds a little bit more symmetry for when all three panels are open, because it sort of mimics and mirrors what I did on the second panel. And since I do have these extra hearts, I was trying to figure out how I wanted to compose it and whether I wanted to use some of those extra hearts as additional embellishments to my card. And anytime I'm indecisive about something, I just move on to something that I know I for sure want to do. And so in this case, since I didn't know how to use those hearts as embellishments, I decided to move on and get my inner panel attached. And so that inner panel, well, it's serving two functions. So one, it does cover up the glue tab from the second panel that we attached. And I'm gonna do the exact same thing here, where I have this nice the backside of the first panel. I want to make that nice and finished as well. So I've just got those extra cardstock layers to create a shim and make that nice and level. But the other reason why I colored the image of the 3 otters on a separate panel is because I knew I was using alcohol inks, and so those inks do tend to bleed through to the back of my cardstock. And so if you were only revealing, let's say, a sentiment, for example, then if you wanted, you could just stamp your sentiment directly onto your card base. You don't have to use a separate panel if you didn't want. Although that panel is, as I mentioned before, also covering up the glue tab of the second panel that folds out. So it's sort of serving double duty there. And as you can see, I'm still trying out different layouts, different compositions with having these additional hearts. And I knew for certain I wanted to add the hearts to this inside most panel. But since my images are, there's no background to them, so all I did was stamp them on white and colored them in. And my go-to for a quick and easy background is to use my pastels. These are Jane Davenport pastel palette, and I'll link to that in the description box below as well. But these are fantastic because it's nice, soft, subtle color that can be applied really, really quickly, and it really just adds just helps to ground and anchor your image a little bit so that it doesn't seem like it's just floating in white space. And even though it's not a proper, you know, scene or landscape or anything like that, I think it still helps to anchor the image a little bit, and so that's why I go to this technique a lot. And I almost always use the light blue as the background, but you really could make it anything that you wanted. And maybe I should have kept it pink so that everything is just tone on tone, but I think that little pop of blue is a little bit nice to kind of set it apart a little bit. And I do have a couple of different sentiments that I've already stamped out. I wasn't sure exactly which one I wanted to use or where and how I wanted to use it. So this is a habit of mine, probably not a good one, but I always think about the sentiment last. So I had the idea for, you know, using these nested hearts to reveal the additional images of the otters, but I didn't really think through where I would put my sentiment. But in the end, I think that it worked out well to actually finish off the inside layers of these hearts, because I think it looks really nice to have the sentiment on the back of this heart here. And I know that the front of my card doesn't have a sentiment, but I'm actually okay with that. I do that a lot, actually. So it's kind of, I think, nice to get your sentiment once you've completely opened everything up and revealed everything. And in fact, you know, there's room on the other heart on the left to add another sentiment as well. So so that's always a possibility too. Or maybe that's where I'll write my little message. So lots of opportunities for how you want to add your sentiment to the inside of the card if you didn't want to add it to the outside. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider liking, commenting, and sharing. And if you want to catch new videos as I publish them, consider subscribing to my channel and ringing the notification bell. Thanks so much, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye!